Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. I am your host, Nash, and let's get into it. So, part of the reason it's taken me a while to release this podcast, relatively speaking, is because I'm still reeling from my hurt over last week's decisions. I removed Joao Pedro to bring in Ekitike, and then I removed Sar to bring in Gyokeres, and then I removed Dykowski to bring in Virgil van Dijk. And I don't need to tell you, but those were poor decisions. So for me, as I'm entering this week, I am torn between the idea of how long is too long to wait for somebody, and then how short is too short to wait for somebody. I can't seem to strike that balance, and that has been my biggest weakness this season. So having said that, how was Game Week 29 for you? I hope you made better decisions than I did. And then I hope you didn't lose -8. It's just a game, they say. It's just a game. The average was 54. So compared to last week, it's not too bad. But what is the biggest factor behind these points? Let's talk about it. So the game we kicked off with Bournemouth and Brentford facing each other. I had hoped for Thiago to just go wild in this game because I'm refusing to remove him from my team. But that wasn't the case. The game ended 0-0 and I gained nothing because I have Hill from Bournemouth, but he was on my bench along with Enzo Lefebvre, who could have given me 13 points. So it was just maybe one of my poorest decision-making weeks this week. So Bournemouth and Brentford did nothing. And then Everton finally keep a clean sheet when I've removed Dykowski. So that wasn't great. And if you were counting on Burnley, that also didn't help you. When it comes to Sunderland versus Leeds, Leeds lost 1-0. So if you had anything from Leeds, you gained nothing. And if you had Enzo Lefebvre, maybe you got something. But also Diarra was the one who scored. Now, this next fixture is one which really killed my week. My game week was done on Tuesday. It really was very sad. Wolves 2, Liverpool 1. Why? Just why? I woke up so bitter. And the thing is, I keep saying on the podcast, you can't underestimate Wolves. And then what does Nash do? He goes and underestimates Wolves. So I guess I got beaten by my own advice. And then the next day, you go Aston Villa versus Chelsea. Of course, if you have an Aston Villa player and that person is not Douglas Luiz, you did nothing. And then Joao Pedro scores a hat-trick. You go Brighton versus Arsenal. Saka scores, and then the game just sort of ends 1-0, nothing happens. West Ham, Somerville scores finally. Man City, I thought they would keep a clean sheet against Nottingham Forest, but they didn't do that. And then Haaland played, and he did nothing as well. So that also brought down many of us because I know many of us have Haaland as their captain. And then you have Manchester United. They've been on great form. And then they're given a gift of 10 men. And so you think, perfect. Sesko might do something. Nope. We get outdone by a great individual effort by Osula in the 90th minute. 10 men for what? And then if somehow you have Spurs players, which I had requested that you don't have, they did nothing. They just did nothing. They're beaten 3-1. And then people like me who had removed Sar, we were just defeated. And then you know what the worst part about all of this is? The FA Cup. Bowen scoring 2 goals, Thiago scoring 2 goals, and just like, why? Mamouche scoring 2 goals against Newcastle, and you're like, why couldn't you do that in the other game? Let's just move on. Anyway. The top performing goalkeeper was Elborg from Sunderland. Just in case you never heard that name before, 10 points. Hermansen, West Ham, 9 points. Raya, 7. Petrovic and Kelleher and Pickford, 6 points. The top 5 defenders. Number 1, Tarkowski, who got 15. Timber got 13. Gabriel got 11. Senesi got 11. Hincapié, Ballard, and Todibo each got 9. When it comes to midfield, Sar was a top performer with 15 points. Anderson and Andre Gomez, 12. Somerville, 11. Wharton, 10. Garner, 10. When it comes to forwards, we have the performer of the week, and that is Joao Pedro, 19 points. Then followed by Osula and Solanke, who got 7, and then Strand Larsen and Nico Jesus, who got 5 apiece. The highest scoring game could be found at Aston Villa versus Chelsea. Aston Villa continue to be inconsistent. I thought they were lucky to beat Chelsea last time out when they defeated them 2-1. So I was expecting something similar, a fight. But it seems like they paid for their luck in the last encounter. Douglas Luiz scored what was the equalizer, which was the only goal, which was a cheeky good goal. Not as good as Morgan Gibbs-White's goal against Manchester City, but it was a good goal. And after that, it was just all Chelsea. A Joao Pedro hat-trick and a Palma goal. I'm happy I recommended those guys, but sad I didn't have any of them, especially after removing Joao Pedro. So maybe Chelsea do perform against the bigger boys, because you can't argue with this result, but then let's wait for the next one. So Joao Pedro had 3 goals, Palma had 1, Douglas Luiz had 1, Bailey, who returned from loan, had the assist for Aston Villa, Gusto, Enzo, Joao Pedro and Garnacho had the assists for Chelsea. Joao Pedro had 3 bonus points, Palma 2, and Garnacho 1. The marquee game of the week was Newcastle United against Manchester United. Now, given Manchester United's form and Newcastle's form, I was expecting a victory for Manchester United. I didn't think it was going to be easy, but I thought they would win maybe 2-1 or 3-1 or 3-2, something like that. And then when the red card happened, I thought, okay, now it's time for a Fernandes hat-trick. Little did I know that they would waste all of his chances. Now, he eventually did have an assist for the goal, which was him crossing to Casemiro, who headed it in. And Casemiro has been a sneaky good asset. He has been, I think, unfairly blamed for Manchester United's woes. I don't think he's like the greatest he has ever been, but he's not been as bad as they say. I think part of it is he has been in a bad team, which has been bad for a long time, and there's nothing he can do. Anyway, Gordon scored to put them up, and of course then Casemiro equalized. And then in the 90th minute, Osula makes an impressive run. Honestly, I think it was goal of the weekend. And he scores a nice curling effort. No, they could just look, and they could only have themselves to blame, and you're just like, okay, so does this mean the honeymoon phase is over? Could be interesting to watch. Anyway, Bruno had the 3 bonus points, thankfully, somehow. But I guess he created a lot. He deserved it. Osula, just for that winning goal, I thought would have gotten the 3. Casemiro finished with 1 bonus point. You know, sometimes when I'm doing this podcast, it's hard to decide who is the weakest, or rather the underperformer or the most disappointing performance this week. But this week is very, very easy. It is belonging to Liverpool, who were beaten 2-1 by Wolves. You know, I joked with you guys that just pick whichever Gomez you want and whichever Bueno you want. And if you chose the right Gomez, well done to you. So Gomez opened the scoring. I won't tell you which one. And then Mo Salah equalized with a goal out of nothing. It was just out of nothing. There was no assist. It was just a poor pass. You know, sometimes football is just about capitalizing on the other's mistakes. And Wolves made a mistake, and Salah pounced, and he punished them. So for those dead teams who have set and forget Salah as captain, they really were happy this week, even if they wouldn't know anyway. At the dying heartbreak of the game, the second goal was scored by Wolves, and it was so disappointing for me because I was hoping Ekitike would score, or maybe Van Dijk. Van Dijk had a possible goal saved. It was just very sad for me. I was just watching my points disappear, and I was just like, okay. So Chachua had the assist for Wolves along with Tolu. Like I said, Salah's was just an interception that led to a goal. When it comes to defensive contributions, well, we never talk about that. But what I meant to say, when it comes to bonus points, Andre got the bonus points, 3. Salah got 2. Frimpong and Soboslai got 1 each. I'm really happy because last week I was telling you I wanted 3 Liverpool players. And now I'm even wondering if 2 is too many. But now they're playing Tottenham this week, and I'm just like, ooh, rubbing my hands. But having said that, they just gotten beaten by Galatasaray last night. So I don't know. I don't know if they're worth believing in at this juncture. Looking at some stats generated from the game week, Liverpool have lost 11 games in all competitions this season in which they've conceded the opening goals. That's kind of sad. So if you want to beat Liverpool, score first. I thought this is not directed at the Premier League, but it's Premier League related. So Bayern Munich are the only side in Europe's top 5 leagues with 3 players registering 25 or more goal involvements this season. Harry Kane, Michael Olise, and Luis Diaz. 25 goal involvements this season. Former fantasy assets doing good abroad. Arsenal haven't lost any of their 14 games when Christian Mosquera has been named in the starting 11. They've won 12 and drawn 2. It is the best unbeaten record of any Premier League player when starting in all the competitions this season. In the Premier League era, and by that I mean from 92-93, only in 05-06, and by this I mean 20, have Arsenal had more goals scored via substitutes than their 19 so far in 25-26. Everybody's contributing. Arsenal are the first team in the Premier League to reach 100 goals in all competitions this season. Bayern Munich have 128 and Barcelona have 110. Since the start of Liam Rosenior's first Premier League game, Joao Pedro has scored more Premier League goals than any other player, 8 in 8 games. I guess I have to bring him back now. This might be like the Mateta effect that Glasner had, or Sesko under Carrick. In fact, maybe I should get Sesko and Joao Pedro. Tottenham are not doing well. And if you watched last night's game, you know. Only in 1935, in the first 15 games, have Spurs endured a longer winless run in league football to begin a calendar year than their 11 matches in 2026 so far. I don't know what they're going to do. This is relegation form. In fact, instead of betting against Wolves, bet against Tottenham. And just to put it into perspective, only Wolves have lost more home Premier League games than Tottenham since the start of last season. Wolves have lost 20, Tottenham have lost 19, while Spurs have the fewest home points of any ever-present side since the start of 2024-2025. Wow, that's damning. Tottenham have failed to win 11 successive league games for the first time since October 1975, while it's the first time they've lost 5 consecutive Premier League games since November 2004, when they lost 6 in a row. If they lose 6 in a row, they'll be firmly in the relegation battle, especially if Leeds and West Ham win. Like you heard me say a little earlier, Osula scored quite an impressive goal. But how impressive, let me tell you. William Osula's top speed against Manchester United was 36.3 kilometers per hour. It is the highest recorded by a striker in the Premier League this season. Another fact about Osula, he is the only substitute in the Premier League history to score a 90th minute winner against Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes has now assisted 14 goals in the Premier League this season. Only David Beckham has ever assisted more goals in a season in the competition for Man United, and he did 15 assists. Since the 6th of December, Arsenal have been unbeaten in their last 12 away matches in all competitions. It is also their longest unbeaten run on the road under Mikel Arteta. Since the start of the 01-02 season, only 6 promoted teams have taken more points by match day 29 than Sunderland have, and Sunderland have 40 by game week 29. Those teams are Sheffield United, Birmingham City, Wolves, Reading, Wigan, West Ham. Basically what I'm saying is Sunderland are safe. Somebody new is getting relegated. And we have broken the curse of, I think the last 2 seasons where the bottom 3 were the 3 promoted sides. That's great. It shows that it's competitive and there's a way to stay up. Elliot Anderson, who scored a great goal against Manchester City to equalize, is the 6th highest scoring midfielder this season with 131 points. 42 of those points have come through DEFCON. DEFCON is a beast. Since Semenyo joined Manchester City, He has scored 5 goals, had 1 assist, and has amassed 52 points since January. Very impressive. In 2026, the top scoring players so far are Joao Pedro, who has 79 points, Gabriel and Bruno Fernandes, who both have 67 points, and Virgil van Dijk, who has 64 points. Liverpool have lost 5 games thanks to 90th minute goals in the Premier League this season, the most by any side in a single campaign in the competition's history. That's tough. Andre's winner for Wolves was the first time ever a team in the competition in the relegation zone has scored a 90th minute winner against the reigning Premier League champions. That's incredible. When it comes to the top transfers in this week, I'll have you guess who number 1 is, and you already know the answer. It is Joao Pedro. You score a hat-trick, you're number 1. Number 2, so 300,000 have brought him in. Senesi has been brought in by 134,000. Semenyo, 121,000. Elliot Anderson, 121,000. Bruno, another 121,000. Number 1 player out, Rodgers, 220,000 have removed him. Van de Ven, 180,000 have removed him. Roofs, 170,000 have removed him. Haaland, 128,000 have removed him. Wilson, removed by 118,000. He didn't play this last week, but they're saying that he is touch and go for this one, so he may play this game week. When it comes to the number 1 performer this week, that honor belongs to Pandem. Pandem got 143 points. I got 46. Just put some perspective. They used their bench boost. Raya, 7 points. Timber, 13 points. Senesi, 11. Trufer, 8. Gabriel, 11. Gay, 1. Gordon, 7. Bruno, 8. Semenyo, 7. Joao Pedro, 38. Bowen, 4. Pickford, 6. Casemiro, 8. Anderson, 12. Thiago, 2. That is a near perfect squad. Short of Thiago and Gay messing it up. What a haul. So, the top performer this week is Young Mula Baby. Simnani Joa, friend of the podcast. He's been interviewed a couple of times before. He has been having a tough season, but I am seeing that things are getting back on track. He had 90 points. In goal, Pickford had 6. Gabriel had 11. Gay had 1. Senesi, 11. Tarkowski, 15. Bruno, 8. Rice, 3. Casemiro, 8. Captain Haaland, 4. Joao Pedro, 19. Bowen, 4. And just so you know, he had 24 points on the bench. So he could have gone much higher. Well done to you, Leon. You have earned this. Number 2 was Jeremy Yego, 86. Teddy Mwalo had 82. And then for 4 and 5 is a 4-way tie with Smacha Cham, Patrick Kaiser, Caleb Omondi, and Washira Gitahi all getting 81 points each. Cordial FC, managed by Calvin Walker, is a team with the lowest points and they have 16. This must be a set and forget team. So Haaland was the captain with 2. Thiago had 2. Richarlison had 1. Foden had 2. Saka had 1. Not Saka, but Shaka. Matty Cash had -1. Chaloba had 2. Gay had 1. Kukurea had 1. Ruben Diaz had 1. And Dubravka had 2. So actually, everybody played in this team. I don't know what to say. That seems so tough to do. But that's how they got 16 points. Wow. Okay. Second from bottom was Edwin Kandie, who got 17 points. Mark Mora got 24 points. G-Star Glitz got 26 points. And rounding up the top 5, or rather the bottom 5, Commander Amos, Control Alt Dele, and Skyscraper. Each of them had 28 points. When it comes to having the most points on the bench, that honor belongs to Marcus Peters, who used their wild card. And I guess didn't figure out who they wanted on the bench. I mean, who they wanted to start and who they didn't want to have. So, starting off, it was Joao Pedro, 19 points on the bench. I don't know if that's painful. because I would rather at least my way where I don't have him at all. Calvert-Lewin 2, Alderete 7, and Henderson 3. And that's how they got 31. Semenyo, the highest, got 24 points on the bench. David Bogo, 24 points on the bench. David Otara, 21. And Mistaken rounds up the top 5 with 20 points on the bench. When it comes to the team with the most goal scorers, that honor belongs to Mozart J, whose team had 7 goals scored by his players. The team with the best midfield belongs to Stan Midea, who had 48 points from his midfield. That is a great return. When it comes to the team with the best defense, John Lucas had 52 points from their defense. Great result. When it comes to the most transfers made, number 1 is Mike Mbugwa, who made 9 transfers. Colin Kogi, Talvin Mudoga, Arnoldinho Arnold, and Lawrence Agepong each made 4, rounding up the top 5 transfers made this week. When it comes to the best transfer outcome, Dream Killers, managed by Khalid Mohammed, gained 29 positions by making the transfers that he did. Alexander Mutune, another one benefiting, 21 points. Dennis Odera, 17 points. Jeffrey Jeremy, 16 points. And Stan Midea, 15 points. Well done, guys. That is some shrewd decision making. Now, on the other end, if you've listened to the top of the podcast, I made only 3 transfers this week, but I am the worst. My transfers lost me 53 points. I lost more points than I actually got this week. That is how bad I was. 3 transfers. 3. Joao Pedro, Sar, and Tarkowski. Removing those 3, I lost 53 points. But somebody else, Mike Mbugo, but then he also made 9 transfers. So I made 3. Are you understanding? That's on average 15 per player I removed. Painful. Painful. And just listen to this drop off. So number 1 is me with 53 points. Mike Mbugwa with 50. Kush Kid, 19. David Moy, 19. And Sachivini, 15. As in, had we done nothing, we would have been better off. It still hurts me. Collins Kogi has the team with the best team value at 106.3. Well done to you, sir. Lowest team value belongs to Angulanayo Kijana Imama, Kumine Supu, 96.6. Highest team value, or rather, highest change in team value belongs to Kaiser Sose Buanaji and Mark Giosh, who have both added 0.5 to their team value. Well done, guys. I hope things keep going that way. On the other end, Melvin Asakanya has seen his team value drop by 1 million. And like I always tell you guys, whenever that happens, I always think a wildcard has been used. And it has been used. When it comes to the differential of the week, Sar got the highest points and chosen by the fewest people in our group. So the 2% equals 2 people, or rather 4 people. 4 people had him, and they got the 15 points. The second one was Tarkowski, owned by 10%, and they got 15 points as well. Anderson is owned by 5%, and he got 12 points as well. Somerville is owned by only 3%, and he got 11 points. And the fifth is Senesi, owned by 18% and returned 11 points. And those were the top differentials in our group this week. Simnanijua, of course, when you get 90 points, you jump globally as well. And he jumped 960,000 positions. Skyscraper dropped 879,000 positions globally. When it comes to doing well, Longilo Otio Mondi has been killing it, crushing it for 11 straight weeks. I think that's the best way to finish the season. Well done to you. Brian Ibrahim, 8th red arrow in a row. I am so sorry. I know that pain. In our league, Simnanijua has jumped up 23 positions. Well done to you. Talk about a strong finish. Now, on the other end, Kojo Danso and Pablo Hernandez have each dropped 19 positions. That's a tough one. When it comes to what they call the captain choice, do you want to guess who's the most captained player in our league? It's none other than Haaland, captained by 74 managers. Bruno is second, captained by 24 managers. Semenyo, also captained by 24 managers. Ekitike was captained by 20 managers. And I'm one of those dummies as well. Now, moving on from him, Saka was captained by 8 managers. Gyokeres was captained by 6. Thiago by 5. Salah by 4. Palmer by 4. Joao Pedro was only captained by 3 of us. Well done, you 3 angels. Mbumo was captained by 3 as well. Rice, another 3. Wood, 2. Raul Jimenez, 2. Gabriel, 2. Voltemada, Hudson-Odoi, Grealish, Foden, Gakpo, Wirtz, Virgil van Dijk, Iwobi, Dewsbury Hall, Enzo, Evanilson, and Watkins, each captained by 1 manager each. When it comes to our league table, Arnold Midunga is still holding the top spot. He got 57 points this week for a grand total of 1797. Alan Muchangi is number 2 with 1772 points. Number 3 is still Papi Chulo with 1746. Consi Komsa, Mr. Leon Mortier, 1746. It's a tie. Franklin Asiama is number 5 with 1735 points. Amos Langat has jumped up the table and is number 6 with 1708 points. Bowley's Billionaires, John Wangami, has jumped up as well to number 7 with 1705 points. Madangani has dropped. He got 46 like me. I hope he didn't make bad decisions like me. He's number 8 with 1698 points. Number 9 is Randy Augusta, who got 1696 points. And number 10 is Charles Cadavillis. He has 1696 points as well. And so, as you've heard, number 1 has 1797, number 10 has 1696, and that's where 100 points is. One of those people, actually at this point, it's looking like the top 5 are going to win, one of them. On the other end of the table, we got Bruce Lee Abungana, who has 325 points. Second from bottom, Marcus Peters, who has 387. They joined late. Mark Mora, who also joined late, has 825 points. Now, Mike Mbogwa, 1031 points. He's a new Don Clinton, making transfers every week and not doing well. And fifth from bottom is Morunga Manyara with 1043 points. When it comes to the global number 1, we have a new number 1, and that number 1 is called Eric Ibsen. I don't know why, but I remember reading a literature book by, I think somebody called Henrik Ibsen. Was it A Doll's House? Anyway, Ibsen has 86 points and he has 1926 points. So, how does his team look? In goal, Pickford, 6 points. Tarkowski, they just keep reminding me, 15 points. Gabriel, 11. Van Dijk, 1. Rice, 3. Semenyo, 14. Fernandez, 8. Soboslai, 5. Thiago, 2. Joao Pedro, 19. Haaland, 2. And that's how they got 86 points. And they have an impressive bench as well. And so, look at number 1 if you want to make changes to your team. As we look forward to the next week, it's important to know that the game week starts on Saturday and it's going to be a late kickoff. And by late, I mean starting at 6, there's no early kickoff. And kicking us off will be Burnley. Burnley take on Bournemouth. Bournemouth have been getting 0-0s of late, and they've been good for clean sheets. So that's the first thing I would say. Get a defender. Senesi is getting back his former glory. For me, it is Hill. Although whenever I put him on, he doesn't get a point, so which means I'm putting him on this week, and I hope he returns. Now, looking at the recent form, Burnley have lost 3 of their most recent 5 games. They've drawn 1 and won 1. Bournemouth have drawn 4 games and won 1. So they're a bit stable. They're not losing, but they're not winning either. They're hard to beat. At this point, I wouldn't want you to gamble on Burnley, but should you want to, Hannibal, Fleming, and who? And maybe Anthony, other people I'd recommend. For Bournemouth, Hill, if you don't have the keeper, have him, and maybe Ryan. Their last game was a draw, a 1-1 draw. So maybe a draw will be there this time. The next match will see Sunderland take on Brighton. Sunderland got a good win last time out, and Brighton were beaten last time out. Now, in their last 5 games, Brighton have lost 3 and won 2, while Sunderland have won 2, drawn 1, and lost 2. So, very quite even. In their last head-to-head, it was a 0-0 draw. And if you believe in that, you are in trouble because you don't have Roofs and you don't have Mukiele. So you have to go for maybe Ballard or Alderete in the back and Elborg, who got 10. He could be a good alternative. Now, going forward, if you're like me, you might have Enzo Lefebvre, but if you're smarter, you'll have Diarra. And if you're gambling, you'll have Mayanda. On the other side, if you believe this game will be 0-0, Verbruggen might not be a bad person to have, or Van Hecke. But going forward, Diego Gomez might not be a bad shout, and Minte. Moving on, Arsenal take on Everton. Now, when I look at their last 5 encounters in terms of their head-to-heads, there are 2 draws and 3 wins for Arsenal. Last time out, Arsenal won 1-0 with Gyokeres scoring a penalty. So Everton tend to be a defensive team. This is a defensive team. I think set pieces will be important. Because I don't know any other way that Arsenal will be scored by Everton. So of course, if you're an Arsenal guy, if you're banking on 3 of them, you might want Raya, Timber, or Gabriel. If you want something else, you might want Gabriel, Saka, and Gyokeres. On the Everton end, Pickford might not be the right man for this encounter. Everton have tough fixtures coming up, but anyway, so he may not be the right person for this encounter. But should you be feeling like you want to gamble going up, you could go Dewsbury Hall, Garner, and Tarkowski or Branthwaite, one of them. Moving on, Chelsea take on Newcastle. Now, Newcastle, I watched their game against Barcelona last night. It was quite an impressive game. They deserved to win, but it just didn't go their way. When I look at their last 5 encounters, Newcastle have won 2, drawn 1, lost 2. So it's quite even. Joao Pedro Reece James scored, and Voltemada had 2 goals in the last encounter. In the one before that, it was Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali. Looking at their last 5 games, Chelsea have won 3, lost 1, drawn 1. Newcastle have lost 2, won 2, drawn 1. So both teams are in decent form. Joao Pedro, Palmer, and Reece James are the first 3 I'll recommend for Chelsea. Harvey Barnes, Gordon, and Tonali are the players I'd recommend for Newcastle. West Ham take on Manchester City. West Ham, thanks to Somerville, got an impressive victory. At this point, I think the title race is pretty much over, given that Manchester City drew last time out. Unless Arsenal stumble and then Manchester City win, then it's back. But short of that happening, I think this thing is already over. The previous head-to-head is one-way traffic. Manchester City have won all 5 encounters against West Ham. Haaland is a popular scorer in this fixture. He scored 2 the last time they played and Reinders got the 3rd. He scored 2 in the previous time they played against them. So if he makes it against Real Madrid tonight, he should be one of your favorites for captain. So if you're choosing Man City players, I would say grab a defender like maybe Nunes or Aït-Nouri. He's been great of late. And then grab Haaland and Semenyo. On the other side, just take Bowen and Somerville, but don't get 2 players from them. Moving on to the next day, you have Crystal Palace versus Leeds. Both teams were not too bad last time out. Now, the last time they played, Leeds ran away with the game and they beat them 4-1 with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Ampadu and Stark scoring, whilst Devaney scored 4, Crystal Palace. I don't think that'll be the same result this time out, but you never know. Crystal Palace have won 3 of their last 5 encounters, drawing 1 and losing 1. Leeds are not quite in good form. They've lost 2, drawn 2, and won 1 of the last 5 encounters. Now, if you're choosing... Look at me just already jumping to Sarr. I'm so bitter about Sarr. Now, Munoz got injured and he will be out for about 12 days. But Sarr, Strand Larsen, and maybe you can gamble with maybe Wharton. as your third player. Those are the three I'd recommend from Crystal Palace. From Leeds, I would go Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Stark, and that's about it. And maybe Ampadu since he scored in the last encounter. Manchester United take on Aston Villa. Now, in the last 5 encounters, Aston Villa have only won once, Man United have won thrice, and there's been 1 draw. So it's clear that Man United are favourites. Now, when it comes to recent form, Aston Villa are in a terrible, deplorable state right now. 3 losses, 1 win, 1 draw. Manchester United, 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Now, I wouldn't encourage you to get into Aston Villa players. As you heard a little earlier, Morgan Rodgers is the most removed player, but so I will try not to recommend him. And I'll say Buendia, Bailey, and Watkins are your picks. Or maybe Douglas Luiz since he scored. So let's go Douglas Luiz, Bailey, and Buendia. Those 3. On the other end, I would say Casemiro, Fernandes, and Sesko. Those are the 3 I'd recommend for Manchester United. Both teams were not impressive last time out and will be looking to put that behind them. Fulham take on Forest. And Fulham won the last game with Raul Jimenez scoring. Fulham have won 4 out of their last 5 encounters, so they're heavy favourites for this encounter. Their recent form, Fulham have lost 2 and won 3, while Nottingham Forest have drawn 1, lost 3, won 1. So they're not in great form. But their draw against Manchester City was impressive and something to look forward to. I'm really curious to find out whether it'll be West Ham, Forest, or Tottenham who go down. Because at this point, I don't know. It's going to be quite interesting if Tottenham are relegated. Just for being interesting, not because I want it to happen. But of course, the Arsenal fans are like, that would be the best if Arsenal win the league and they get relegated. It'll be like perfection. So I can definitely understand Arsenal fans hate watching Spurs matches. In fact, one of my friends was hate watching them lose to Atletico last night. So anyway, if you're choosing Fulham players, now it is quite possible that Wilson will be back. But in case he isn't, I would say Raul Jimenez, and he will be worth looking at. While on the other end, it will be Igor Jesus, Morgan Gibbs-White, and Elliot Anderson. Those 3. And Elliot Anderson purely for DEFCON. And if he gets more, well, that's what happens. I can't call this a marquee game, but the most, I don't know, TV-worthy game is Liverpool versus Tottenham. But at this point, Tottenham are whipping boys. They haven't won in 11 games. They're trash. But also, Liverpool have been trash over the last 2 games. Beaten by Wolves, beaten by Galatasaray. It's not quite, so it's going to be a picker-upper for one of them. Now, Liverpool have the better record in this encounter, having won 4 of their previous 5 games, with Tottenham winning only 1 against Liverpool in that same period. Now, Spurs have lost their last 5 games. Liverpool have won 3 and lost 2. So, of course, Liverpool are in better form. Now, if you are choosing players, Ekitike, if you believe Salah is back, then you choose him, and Szoboszlai. If you're choosing Spurs players for whatever reason, honestly, don't. But also, should you want to, it's Pedro Porro, Richarlison. Yeah, that's it. I would normally say take Romero, Van de Ven. They may score, but I think they will be beaten, and you don't lose that clean sheet for nothing. The final game will see Brentford take on Wolves. Now, this game is the biggest trap of the game week. People will be like, Igor Thiago is playing Wolves. It's going to be an easy game. He'll have a hat-trick. And then they'll be beaten. The last time they played, Lewis Potter scored 2 goals. Now, in their recent matches, Wolves have drawn 1, lost 2, won 2. That's good form. Brentford have won 2, lost 1, drawn 2. That's even better form. Now, if you're choosing players from each side, of course, I would say Thiago, Damsgaard, and Schade. Wolves, like I said earlier, actually maybe take Potter since he scored 2 in the last encounter. For Wolves, it just has to be the Gomezes and the Buenos. Just continue with that formula. That should be fine. When it comes to choosing captains, Burnley versus Bournemouth. I wouldn't choose a captain here unless you're going for defensive points. Sunderland versus Brighton, also I don't see a captain here. Arsenal versus Everton, honestly, this is a Gabriel Timber. If you have one of them, choose them. Chelsea versus Newcastle, Joao Pedro and Palmer are looking like clear favorites for captaincy right now. West Ham versus Man City, Semenyo or Haaland. Crystal Palace versus Leeds, I would say Sarr, even though we're not on speaking terms right now. Manchester United versus Aston Villa, I would say, okay, for Leeds game, also take Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He scored 2 in the last game, so in the last encounter, so it might come back. Man United versus Aston Villa, I would say Casemiro, Sesko or Fernandes, and don't choose a Villa captain. Forest versus Fulham, I would say Raul Jimenez, Elliot Anderson, Morgan Gibbs-White. Liverpool versus Spurs, Ekitike, Szoboszlai, Salah. Those are the easiest captains I see in this game week. Now, moving on to the FPL FDR. The first thing you need to remember is that next game week is the blank. So don't load up on Arsenal players. Don't load up on Palace City players as well, or Wolves. And then also, as a result of the FA Cup and some of the Premier League teams continuing to go through, there will be additional double game weeks. So Arsenal will definitely be getting another double game week. So keep your eyes peeled and keep your chips ready. Okay, so kicking it off with Arsenal. Arsenal have Everton, then the blank week, then they have Bournemouth, Man City and Newcastle. Not easy fixtures, but Arsenal are the best in the league right now. I still think it's not wise to have 3 Arsenal defenders, but moving up, spreading it might not be bad. But also preparing for the blank will be wise. Aston Villa have Man United, West Ham, Forest, Sunderland and Fulham. In theory, outside the Manchester United game, all of these games are winnable, but the reality is they're incredibly inconsistent and you do not know what you'll get with them. So approach with caution. Bournemouth have Burnley, Man United, Arsenal, Newcastle, Leeds. Those are tough fixtures. Especially when you start Man United, Arsenal, Newcastle. I'll definitely have to put Hill on the bench for those games. So those are tough fixtures. I wouldn't say go into them, but if you have their players, know that after the Burnley game, it gets incredibly difficult for them. Brentford have Wolves, Leeds, Everton, Fulham, Man United. In theory, this is Thiago should be eating. But I'm afraid to remove him because he's going to score a hat-trick the second I get him out of my team. So I'm just going to die with his 2 points. Now, Brighton have Sunderland, Liverpool, Burnley, Tottenham and Chelsea. Honestly, the problem with Brighton is that they're quite inconsistent. If it was it was Brighton of old, you'd have said, oh, these are 5 winnable games. But now it's like maybe they're two winnable games and the rest are just, we'll do our best. So I would say be skeptical with Brighton. Burnley have Bournemouth, Fulham, Brighton, Forest and Man City. Burnley have been competitive, but I'm just not going to be betting on them. And I wouldn't encourage anybody to get into them as well. Chelsea have Newcastle, Everton, then Man City, Man United and Brighton. With how Joao Pedro is playing, he could score hat-tricks for the rest of the season. Who knows? Chelsea, I don't know how to predict them anymore. I thought they had easy games and they did nothing in those easy games. Now they have difficult games and now Joao Pedro is scoring hat-tricks. So maybe just have Joao Pedro and then just hope for the best. Crystal Palace have Leeds, then a blank, then Newcastle, then West Ham, and then Liverpool. So don't stock up on them because of the blank. And also the fixtures are a bit tricky. Outside Leeds, which in theory they should win, but they lost 4-1. It's just going to be tricky. Let's just see what happens. But don't jump into them right now. Everton have Arsenal, Chelsea, Brentford, Liverpool, and then West Ham. This 4-game stretch of theirs is going to be difficult, and I would not encourage you to have them. But if you want to get Tarkowski, he'll score 14 points. I'm not bitter at all. Fulham have Nottingham Forest, Burnley, Liverpool, Brentford, and Aston Villa. Now, Fulham on the day, they can beat anyone. And honestly, if you tell me they're going to win 3 or 4 of these games, I would believe you. I hope Wilson is back. If you can figure out who the player you want is, I think they can surprise people here. Leeds have Crystal Palace, Brentford, Man United, Wolves, and Bournemouth. These are winnable games. At least 3 of them, they could get a result and maybe secure their position in the Premier League, where you only got about 9 to 8 games left. So we're at the business time of the season, and they can do it. Liverpool have Spurs, Brighton, Fulham, Everton, Crystal Palace. Liverpool can't surprise you. They can beat somebody and then be beaten by Wolves. So I don't know what to make of them. These fixtures are all winnable on paper, but unfortunately they have to win the games on the ground. I am still thinking of getting a third Liverpool player, but I am quite discouraged after what they did to me with the Wolves match. And if you're like me, I don't know what to tell you. Man City have West Ham, then they're blank, then they have Chelsea, Arsenal, Burnley. Whoa, those are tough fixtures. Okay, so at least the league will be settled early. That's what. Gameweek 33. Gameweek 33, actually Gameweek 32, when they play Chelsea, the season will be over for them by that time. Or maybe open, depending on what happens with Arsenal. And if they can beat West Ham, beat Chelsea, and beat Arsenal, it's game on again. But City are too inconsistent. I wonder how they'll do against Real Madrid tonight. Man United, I would say, okay, before moving on to Man United, with Man City, just have Semenyo if you need one player. And if you need 2, maybe Ait Nouri. Moving on. Man United have Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Leeds, Chelsea, Brentford. In theory, winnable games. I'm wondering if the honeymoon stage is over because they have been stumbling a bit. But I'm not shaken yet. I am still gonna keep Bruno strong. I'm not gonna captain him necessarily against Villa, but they're looking good. They're looking like favorites, especially in this encounter. Bournemouth are finding it hard to score. They can beat Leeds. Chelsea will be a tough one. Brentford will be a tough one. So at least for the next 3 games, it's looking all Manu. So I would say go for them. Newcastle have Chelsea. Then they have Sunderland, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, and Arsenal. Interesting. So outside Chelsea, then the other games, of course, Chelsea and Arsenal, those are the toughest games. And the 3 in between, I could see them beating them. But Chelsea and Arsenal, those will be tough ones. Nottingham Forest have Fulham, Tottenham, Aston Villa, Burnley, and Sunderland. I would say Morgan Gibbs-White would be a great person to have for these fixtures. When it comes to Spurs, Spurs have Liverpool, Forest, Sunderland, Brighton, and Wolves. In theory, you could say they're going to win 3 or at least 4 of these games, but on the ground, they haven't won in 11 games. So, and they've lost 5 in a row, so I'm not going to recommend you to move into Spurs players in any capacity. Sunderland have Brighton, Newcastle, Tottenham, Aston Villa, and Forest. Sunderland are safe, and these fixtures are tricky. They have 1, 2, 3 fixtures at home, so I would only count on them on the home ones. Roofs, Mokele are out, so defensively, it's also a bit shaky. So if you can figure out maybe it's Diarra or Enzo Lefebvre and Ballard, if you figure out who you want, you could be fine. West Ham have City, Villa, Wolves, Crystal Palace, and Everton. I don't expect much from the Man City game, but I could see them getting at least, they could get something against this unpredictable Villa. They could beat Wolves. They could surprise Everton and Crystal Palace, honestly. So they have everything left to fight for. Wolves have Brentford, blank, West Ham, Leeds, and Tottenham. Wolves are a difficult team to beat right now, and these are all winnable fixtures. I could even see them having a 4-game winning streak. That is how unbelievable they have been over this few months. And so don't bet against them, bet against Spurs. And with that, we've come to the end of our podcast. Thank you so much for laughing at me. I hope to do better this coming week, and I hope you all do better as well. Enjoy the Champions League football. Bye-bye.